Humanity is going to go through a big change in the future, at least in this decade. And that is the reason we want to bring a very new model of spirituality for the next evolution. The whole thing centers on Tantra, but there's more. We'll talk about this going forward. It is all about blending and merging science and spirituality together. Second is to find a solution to the transhumanism agenda that is going forward. And the last piece is to ensure that people understand that a big change is coming and they need to evolve and evolve quickly. I initially got interested in the spiritual wisdom by understanding of stocks. I know this sounds hilarious, but if you can invest in stocks based on full moon and new moon cycles, you'll be able to ride along and make profits in the stock market. This led me to study self awareness and the cosmic consciousness. Project Eternity is exactly that. We are under a big change. We are under a big change because of our lack of self awareness. Over here, you will see Adam is so not self aware that he cannot lift up his finger to touch God. This is the biggest challenge which transhumanists have understood. Humans are now hackable animals. The whole idea of transhumanism is all about obliterating the idea of the soul, the spirit, and the self awareness that creates human beings. You later realize through this presentation why not only Tantra is important, but the human being has all the energies of the universe to make a massive difference. It's just that we don't know about it. That's exactly the reason Project Eternity was created, because we cater to the next evolution. We are all about oneness, not separation. Most of the spiritual models are all about gurus talking about their own stuff, their own philosophies, but nobody's trying to merge everything together. That's the reason humanity has not really moved forward. We have to be extremely original. We can't depend upon what people are saying, but we have to decode it ourselves, preserve it, unify it, and apply it to our lives as a collective, which means everybody has their own talent, everybody has their own ideas, but if we work together and understand the self and the cosmic awareness, we will be able to build a new spirituality for the human race. That is why you don't need a guru. Of course, there'll be guidance, but it is all about self evolution. The entire solution is we find solutions inside of ourselves. It's a difficult model of spiritual consciousness. That's why it is all focused on one percenters who make a difference, who influence the world, who want to make the world better, make a difference for their families. They're not the ones that just come home after work, watch Netflix for 4 hours, and they feel indifference to the world. We have no interest on those people because we are all about unpleasant truths instead of comforting lies. So it depends upon who you are. Eventually, we believe that we need to focus only on the one percenters who make a difference. Their change will change the 99%. Let's get back. We believe that we need to bring the model of Tantra, which is all about practicing spiritual wisdom. We are all about merging science, spirituality, technology, and psychology, and Tantra fits the entire model because it is all about oneness with the universe. The orgasm with the universe has been taken and completely perverted to make Tantra look like a sensual or sexual philosophy. It isn't. So let's look at the details. This is the E8 crystal. This crystal lattice is considered to be the structure of the universe. This is the crystal lattice that many people have won Nobel Prizes decoding it, whereas the ancients actually had this exact grid in the ancient world. It is in our DNA as well. And if you can take a look at this, you'll realize that how much there is oneness when we understand Tantra. When you take the E8 crystal grid and then flatten it on a 2D, it kind of makes this kind of an 8 by 8 square grid. This is fundamental to understand because this is the basis of all mandalas, and inside there is an 8 cross or a 4 by 4 cross. The genesis of this eventually leads to the Sri Yantra. What we think about spiritual wisdom is coded into the books is perhaps highly incorrect, although there's a ton of wisdom in texts. The problem is there's too much of interpretation that is needed in those books. We believe there's a ton of information that can be decoded from temples, specifically all about cosmic consciousness. You can take a look at the temples. When you look at the top, you will see exactly how these ancients coded the entire wisdom of the 8 by 8 hypercube into the temples. The perfect structure of all the temples in India is based on these 64 cosmic archetypes, which we'll talk later. But for the time being, you can see the projection of the hypercube on the 2D or 3D surface, creating nothing but the 8 by 8 star. And this is fundamental because all our temples are based on this exact wisdom. Studying this is the next human evolution because in it lies everything. You'll be able to decode every cross, every universal template, every perhaps target portals if necessary. And studying the cosmic archetypes helps humanity understand who they are and provides immense human powers. Let's look at it. This temple in India is called the 64 Yogini Temple. A yogini is a female power that is given to you through meditation, through your inner self. The whole thing looks like a torus, but inside there are 64 pillars. There is no reason to design this without these 64 pillars until you understand that the 64 pillars are nothing but the 64 codon rings in our DNA. The whole thing is put into the temples for us to decode. If this is true, perhaps the same wisdom will be in other civilizations. This is Egyptian. The goddess over here is called Nut, not Mat, but Nut is the sky goddess. What of a goddess she is? This picture has an immense amount of symbolism. If you count the number of stars in her body, you'll realize there are 64 cosmic archetypes. And of course, there are 7 chakras or energies. This entire code gives us the idea of how energies from the stars contribute to our human consciousness, which is at the base, which is our spine. And the whole code needs to be evolved, decoded, and understood. And then can we apply it. But the central to all this is understanding archetypes. And what are archetypes? Archetypes are symbols. They can be psychological symbols, they can be energy symbols, it can be human experience symbols. But these symbols are all about patterns that repeat across the universe, across the human psyche. The ancients basically coded all this for us. If you look at the sky, Nataraja in the sky basically shows how the feet or the hands are pointing to different constellations, but they went a lot further. What they did is they took many of these cosmic elements and then created symbols out of it. So, whenever you look at statues or archetypes or go to temples, you have to notice the symbols. This is a very complex archetype. You've got six hands, which is nothing but the six X, Y, and Z axis. They are talking about the navel of Vishnu, for example, where energy from the universe flows. They are talking about the way, the direction the energy flows from the stars into our body. For example, take a notice that the left foot always points towards the west. This is the navel where the chi energy comes from, and these are not taught to us because, after all, we are so left brained and our education system is such that it has dumbed down the knowledge of the past, that we are at the mercy of going back to our own selves and finding our own salvation through decoding these ancient archetypes. We have found out a way where we believe the model is accurate. For example, you can see the serpent, which is the ascension of the spirit, explaining from the whole universe. All these stars contribute to certain energies that ultimately connect with our DNA. And this is the new level of wisdom that we need to bring to humanity. Once we do that, we are going to be extremely self aware, which is the reason we need to study temples and bring that wisdom to humanity for them to evolve further. The wisdom of Tantra is going to be very important. Your eyes or anybody's eyes are going to fall in the middle of the screen, but human beings are usually, they can notice erotic pictures easily. Now, in this temple, only about 5% of all images are erotic, really. This is a code that we have to decode and bring this to humanity because the entire model hinges on the archetypes that are on the left and the right. What these temples are talking about is the flow of energy from the universe. For example, they have talked about the Lion's Gate energy. Through the Lion's Gate or through Leo, the energy flows through Orion's belt towards Sirius. We may not understand all this, but many people do, and our idea is to focus on that. If you can interpret this picture, you'll see that many of these archetypes on the left and right are just the reverse of each other. The statue, the female statue over there, is looking at a mirror image explaining that the constellations or these archetypes kind of move in reverse order and thus talking about male and female polarities. You can see the two Leos or the two lions over here, which means the central piece would be where energy focuses through Sirius. If you look at the constellation of Sirius, for example, there are probably six big stars, and these stars kind of intertwine their energies through each other, which is explained over here with the males and the females coming together, which is the reason you've got four big stars and there are two small stars at the bottom. This is not an erotic picture. They are talking about how the energy flows through the universe for us. And the entire map of the temple is all about explaining how energy creates the different elements. So, from the feet of Shiva, which is Orion, through Lepus, another constellations, then through the yoni, the world's or the universe, his womb, flows the energy that ultimately creates the energy that goes to create the five elements. That is why the study of Tantra is important because Tantra was an expression of the human self and the universe in these temples. It was a practice, it was a revolutionary practice, which is the reason it is completely decimated. They knew the human body is the most powerful of anything in the universe. Inside our body are chemicals, enzymes, secretions that creates our feelings. It has the ability to heal ourselves. It has the ability to give us superpowers if we can follow it. The ancients understood this and they represented everything in the body and the temples. Studying of quantum physics is important because if you look at this particular temple, you'll see the whole thing looks like a donut or a torus. So that means once somebody goes inside and meditates by looking at certain yoginis or cosmic archetypes at the periphery, they'll be able to make their DNA vibrate and be one with the cosmos. This is where quantum physics and energy comes in because everything ultimately is energy, which means us, the human, the atom, the universe's energies, they all come together and they nest one inside the other to create oneness. That's why this is exactly the orgasm with the universe. Going back into the Egyptian archetype over here, we see the same brought into humanity through the knowledge of the I Ching. The knowledge of the I Ching is nothing but understanding these 64 cosmic elements or the 64 cosmic elements that contribute to the 64 codon rings in our DNA. There are three states. There's a shadow, there's a gift, and there's a siddhi or a higher purpose. The more we understand our DNA and help understand where we are vibrating at what level, the more we will understand how to be powerful. So that brings us to the study of the mitochondria. Inside the mitochondria is all these chromosomes and all that stuff, which are like a cilia, like a hair. This is where alchemy happens, and the ancients knew it. People have coded all this knowledge in Latin so that we don't understand what is going on, but Christe Lumen basically means the light of Christ, which means the cosmic archetypes give all the energy to our DNA, where through alchemy, the energy is transmuted into our physical self. That means from light, we become denser objects. So we are light bodies in our true nature. Our philosophy is to kind of decode all this wisdom and bring the power of the RNA or the 64 codon rings that ultimately connect with the 64 I Ching hexagrams. So again, let us repeat. The 64 cosmic archetypes that's actually all over the temples is the hidden secret because they ultimately contribute towards vibration of our emotional and physical states, and this code exists in the 64 hexagrams of I Ching. Now, if this is true, the temple should tell us if this is accurate. Once you see the temple on the left and the 64 codon rings on the right, you'll realize how much both are correlated. In addition, if you look at this picture, where the temple, the zodiacal tortoise of the I Ching, and our RNA code, they are so similar. That means whoever understands this model can actually hack humanity, and that is exactly what is going on. Which means the moment we humans have given our DNA over to people who have bad intent, our DNA can be collected and hacked, and that hacking process is the true AI. Which means if somebody can get your DNA and they can churn that data to understand who you are, they can basically put a chip with or even chemicals that can completely change your state. If you want to be happy, they can just trigger some kind of a electricity or nerve impulse, and then you're going to feel not spiritual, of course, you're going to feel pleasure because happiness, love, and all those elements are inside. But if you are controlled to think that happiness and pleasure are the same, then your DNA can be hacked. Somebody can control you, and the result is simple: the loss of the self. This is exactly what they are talking about. And this is what Project Eternity does not want. Because it seems there is a hard fork where people needs to be given the higher wisdom to experience our new humanity. This is a picture of alchemy. And once we decode all this, you'll get the wisdom of how powerful human beings are. The ancients were extremely powerful people, but they knew that one day they will be decimated by a negative agenda. And that is the reason they coded information into cosmic archetypes. Saraswati, which is a goddess like Inanna, you'll see an owl or a swan. If you look up at the sky, you'll see it stands for Lyra and there's a star called Vega. Now, they are talking about how the energy from Lyra or Vega sits near Cygnus, which is the swan. If you can understand these energies, you'll know that this energy contributes to wealth, beauty. They also contribute to geometry, beautiful mathematics, and all that stuff. The same has been the archetype in Japan, where Lyra or Vega is sitting close to Draco, which explains the picture on the left. Understanding how to harness these energy from these archetypes is the real power. It's just that we don't know it. What happens is that the external world is only about the five senses. The internal world that can harness these energies have 64 sensations. Now multiply that by the three states. It is massive. The more we understand the spiritual self within us, because this knowledge does not need to be acquired. It needs to be acquired through the self inside. And once you understand it, the energy is sent to you from this cosmic archetype. That is why Mat or Isis is nothing but the energy of Kali. The ancients put this in the pictures like this, and we have forgotten how to decode it. The moment we decode it and we know when the energy flows, we can all harness it. This is the reason Project Eternity is not meant for everybody. This is for the one percenters who have no problem in looking at their own self and feeling the need to contribute towards humanity by decoding this wisdom and spreading it to humanity as well against the transhumanism agenda.